Okay, this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Fire Commissioners. Actually, no, it's a special meeting. The Board of Fire Commissioners, the date is Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021, and the time is about 9:06. Leticia, can we have roll call, please?
Ibarra.
Here.
Glazier.
Here.
Hara. Carr, can you unmute him if he's not able to unmute himself, please? Hara is raising his hand. I'm asking to unmute. Carr, I'll let you address that. Hara. I see your hand raised again, Commissioner Hara. I'm asking to unmute again.
President Ibarra, for
Here.
purposes of, okay, good.
Lindbergh.
Here.
Woods Gray. Woods Gray.
Here. Here.
Chief Terrazas.
Here.
City Attorney Raffish and Nugent also.
Here.
Lind
here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Now we will move on to the flag salute and moment of silence. Chief Terrazas.
Everybody please stand. Right hand over your heart. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United
of the
States
United
of America
States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of past and present members of the Los Angeles City Fire Department who have devoted their lives to the protection of our community. Thank you.
So we start, as always, with Commissioner comments.
Good morning. Oh, you put my video on too. Good morning. The LAFD is on the radio this morning because the firefighters are refusing to take their vaccinations, so that it's going every 10 minutes. So far, announcing that even though the chief is given prizes, they still refuse to take the vaccine. So that's an interesting comment, Chief, for you today. I'm sure you were aware, not everybody is. Not a good thing because they're good role models for people. We want everybody to be able to take it. Also, I was very concerned. I'll wait for the other issues. I guess the racial equity plan. I did want to talk about that because the fact that we attended the meeting with the mayor the last time, and the mayor said he had all of the plans in, but as I had requested from the the department before, that we wanted to hear the plan at the commission meeting, and we never got an overview of it. And now Chief Rideout has retired. I'm just not sure where we are on that. But I still would like to have a full report on the racial equity plan at the commission meeting, and whoever's in Chief Rideout's place, I guess, has to should know what it is. And I wasn't sure if the Centurions, I remember they made a request that they'd like to also see the plan. So I was wondering if anyone else related to the department or in the department had seen this plan before it went to the mayor's office.
Commissioner, Chief, let me respond to that. There was a very tight timeline for submission, and Chief Rideout did submit it, and he incorporated input from all the stakeholder groups, including the Stentorians. Chief Rideout's replacement, Chief Gutierrez, is knowledgeable of the plan and will agendize the plan for you on our next meeting.
Thank you, because we did want to hear about it before it went. That was my request, but I still think that even though it's already gone over there, we need to hear about it, what the plan says. So I appreciate it being agendized for the next meeting. Thank you.
Do we have other comments? Okay, why don't we move on then to report of the fire chief?
Thank you, Madam President. Starting with January 20th, I had the pleasure of notifying 19 LAFD members of their promotions, which were effective this past Sunday. We had 13 Captain 1s and 6 inspectors. Also on that day, I got trained up on how to administer COVID vaccinations, and I spent some time at Dodger Stadium with the mayor. The mayor has spent 5 days there. The day I was there, he was doing the data entry, and I would follow up with the actual vaccination. A recent change in our EMT scope of practice has enabled all EMTs to be able to vaccinate. So we provided online training, as well as somebody observes you for 3 vaccinations, and then you're certified. On January 21st, I attended a press conference with the mayor at Dodger Stadium to speak again about the vaccination effort there at Dodger Stadium. We believe it's the largest capacity in the country right now. And actually, we have greater capacity. The limiting factor is the supply of the vaccine. On January 26th, I participated in a California Professional Firefighters Vaccine Town Hall meeting with President Brian Rice. The intent of that was to encourage our firefighters to get vaccinated. The story that Commissioner Woods-Gray brought up, we currently stand at 55%. And we're not the only ones. The fire department in New York is less than 50%, Chicago's 30%, LA County Fire Department 68%. And it's something that will continue. We're going to continue to offer vaccinations. The other piece that's important to note is that 1/4 of our people have already had the coronavirus. So we're recommending that people who've had tested positive wait 90 days before they take the vaccine. Otherwise, you might have a bad reaction. Also on January 26th, I did another interview with MSNBC at Dodger Stadium talking about vaccination efforts, not only there, but throughout the city. And then on January 27th, we had a little recognition of Chief Rideout's retirement. Chief Rideout has been a tremendous asset to this department. I hated to see him go, but I was very happy for him to start the next chapter of his life. He's contributed a great deal, and we thanked him, and we have great confidence in his replacement in Chief Gutierrez. End of report. Back to you, Madam President.
Thank you. Moving on to consent agenda items. Can I have a motion to move those items?
Madam President, I have a couple items I'd like to pull.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Item A, item C, and item E.
Okay. Do I have a motion for the rest of them?
Sure. Move to adopt the recommendations for items 3B, D, and E. I'm sorry, F. 3D and F.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do we
Aye.
get a voice vote?
Let's
Aye.
do a roll call vote.
A roll call.
President, yes, please.
Leticia? Leticia, I think you're muted.
Ibarra,
Aye.
Glazier,
Aye.
Hara,
Aye.
Ninberg,
Aye.
Woods Gray.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. So 3A's report by the department on the status of LAFD projects. Is that Chief Everett?
Yes, Madam President. Good morning, everyone. The status of the report backs are there before you, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions from Commissioner Woods-Gray.
Oh, my concern was, again, back to the racial equity report request. I didn't see it on there anyplace.
Yes, ma'am. It's up there in the upper section where it says racial equity plan. We will have to change the primary contact because Chief Rideout, as you mentioned, has retired. The status on that report back is listed as TBD. We've made a request to the Mayor's Office of Racial Equity because those reports were submitted to that office. And prior to releasing any portion of that report publicly, we wanted to make sure the Mayor's Office was okay with that because it's their report. So I'm waiting to hear back from the Mayor's Office if they would like us to do such. And if not, perhaps we can have somebody come present from their office to the commission.
Oh, it would be good. We could have the executive officer of the deputy mayor come and present. That would be great. Also, anything that leaves the department, in my opinion, should come before the commission. I don't understand. That was just not hard for me to understand how every other commission, because we all meet together and talk, had a presentation, and we didn't. And we have a serious issue in this particular area, and so at least I think so. And so I was really disappointed that we had not seen or heard the report when the mayor said he had received all of them in time. I'm glad you were on time. That was good. Okay, very good. That's all I had to say about A. About C.
Oh, wait.
Oh, we have to
About
vote
A.
on it.
There's a
Okay.
lot of reports that leave the department that don't come before the commission. And that has to do with the structure of whether they need, commission approval or not. So, and the urgency of the report to the department. We can have a huge discussion about that as well.
Yeah.
But obviously not today.
But I had requested it come before the commission before it went to the mayor. Okay. And then I think it was C. I looked at C. That is such a waste. A department that is suffering from financial concerns. We printed that whole thing and sent it out. It looked ridiculous to me when I received it. They could have had some kind of a summary on it, it looks like to me, as opposed to wasting all of that paper, time, energy, and printing that particular form. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It just looked like a waste. And I thought, we have a lot of ways we're talking about saving money. Is this another way that we can save money? Is by the printing and the things that we have to print and the things that we don't have to print.
I feel like I'm getting mixed messages from you. On the one hand, you want everything to come to the department. On the other hand, this is a major contract the department is entering into for, a lot of money. So you don't want to see that? So
I wanted a summary, not that whole booklet.
I would like to also comment that, I mean, I understand there were 50, I don't know how many pages of redacted information printed solid black on both sides. I mean, I will say that was a concern of mine as well.
You're right. I didn't understand that there was a lot of pages that were blank. It might have been a copying mistake. I don't know, but I did notice that.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
So that was my concern with C, is that I feel like we need to look at look at everything when we're trying to save money. A summary of that project would have been better because I haven't read it yet. I looked at all those black pages. Didn't look interesting enough to go through it. So that's another thing that's going to go into my trash file.
Commissioner Woods Gray, not to interrupt, I'm sorry, but I can't, I don't have certain commands that I need to do, but I can address that. The concern and issue was there was, at the last minute, a problem with that report. Therefore, I chose to mail it out on Thursday so you would get it on Friday because I was not able to resolve that issue until late Friday afternoon. I did send an email following up telling everyone that there would be the updated corrected report. It was just huge. I had digital problems with it. But that's what occurred in that situation. So I can follow up directly with you also afterwards, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you
You're
for your input. I still felt it was a waste of a lot of paper. So that was my comment on C. And then we go down to E. E is that corrective, the corrective action summary. I looked at the fourth item, 1, 2, 3, 4 at the top, offenses and the actual penalties. And then I looked at the bottom, and I was looking at the last one on the where above reprimands. And if you refuse to follow instructions of a supervisor, to me, that's insubordination. I was trying to figure out what the difference in insubordination was and following the directions of a supervisor. Because the ones at the bottom got reprimands and the person at the top was recommended for 18 calendar days.
Commissioner, Chief Gutierrez is also on the line, who's just left PSD, but I can address the format of that report. That report has been formatted in that manner for many years. The penalty guidelines that are identified, there are slight differences in each of the penalty guidelines that are approved by the commission, and they have nuances to what it is we can charge somebody with for insubordination is a different charge than failure to follow the instructions. So the cases are all different, and depending on the evidence of a particular case is what PSD will go with in terms of the penalty guideline that's utilized. And Steve, I don't know if you have anything further on that, but.
Good morning, Commissioner, Assistant Chief Stephen Gutierrez. No, I think specifically, as Chief Everett alluded to, the penalty guidelines are divided in a series of groupings, and each and every case is unique, as he mentioned, and also the evidence that supports that case is such that it will fall into various categories. So this format has been adopted to include that, where we clearly just identify the reprimands and then those other punitive actions where in cases where actual penalty resulting in working our calendar days are. But each and every case is specific, and I can't get into specifics on those cases. However, they're different in how they're adjudicated and following the penalty guidelines.
It just appeared to me that if you refuse to follow a direction, that's insubordination. And so when I see insubordination and then I see reprimand and then I see an insubordination that I can say is an insubordination because of the description, then it says 18 days and I'm going, wow, that's an awful lot of days for something that someone else received a reprimand for. That is the concern of mine. The other question I have, are these all of the offenses or are these selected offenses that we dealt with?
Yes, ma'am. The report in front of you, it just identifies that quarter of the cases that were adjudicated and closed. So there's a number of guidelines and offenses, throughout. However, what you have is a snapshot within that quarter.
So from October 1st to December 31st, these are all of the actions that were taken by the PSD? These
are closed cases in that quarter, correct?
Okay.
That resulted in punitive action, which means a reprimand and or above.
Okay, so therefore, I just wanted to make sure they weren't selected ones that are, but this is all of them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah.
because it's a,
Commissioner, sorry, just to follow up on what Chief Gutierrez had said, the reprimands are generally, a lot of times they'll fall under the R3 penalty guideline. And you'll see the description of R3 as a violation of department city rule or policy. Very vague, very general. The commission at some point years ago had asked us for additional information on the right-hand column. So that's why you'll see insubordination, assigned hire refusal, unbecoming conduct, some kind of descriptor that can narrow down what R3 is. Okay, so the fact that they used insubordination could have just as easily been failure to follow the instructions of a supervisor. It could have been because they're just trying to identify more specifically under R3, which is very general, some kind of descriptor to give you an idea of the ballpark or nature of the offense. That is opposed to up above H2, which is an actual penalty guideline to refuse to follow the instruction of a supervisor, which comes with a different penalty than R3. So depending on the evidence of the case, depending on the facts before them, they will determine which penalty guideline is the most appropriate for that case. That's why they went between R3 and H2.
oh, okay. All right, thank you. Those were the three that I had questions about. Because it did seem a lot of days for this H2.
Okay, so we need votes for these. So
Can I ask just a quick question on C? I'm just curious on the timeline. Excited for everybody to have the new EPCR coming. What is the anticipated timeline before they'll roll out and go live?
Go ahead, Scott. Commissioner Scott Porter can answer that question for you.
Okay, great.
Scott, oh, there you are.
Hey there. Sorry, had a problem. The question was, what is the timeline?
Yeah, just curious. I know there's 3 milestones. So how soon do you think those roll out to the field and start operating?
It's a great question. Our very first hurdle is to get this through the CAO and Mayor's office approval.
Okay.
When it leaves commission, assuming it gets approved here, and it goes through the normal process, considering the current financial situation, we're hoping that it gets approved and goes through there. So there's that time, whatever that time is, that takes us to the start date. So let's say in the best case scenario, April 1, we start the project. It's probably about a 6-month time frame before we're ready to begin the rollout, and then 3 to 6 months to roll it out. LA County did roll this particular software out in a much shorter time frame, and they went from Stryker to ImageTrend. They did it, I think, in like 3 months, but they're sort of feeling the consequence of that, and we've got a lot of lessons learned from their experience. So we probably won't go that fast, but I know we do want to go fairly fast because the sooner we get off of Stryker and onto ImageTrend, the better for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, that's great. What kind of device?
Calendar year, hopefully. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, what kind of devices are you going to use the Toughbooks again, or are you just planning to?
So one of the big advantages here is we're going to probably have a hybrid of devices. We're going to roll out iPads for a majority of the resources, and the iPads will be used for EPCR, new NFIRS, and fire prevention, fire inspections. Some of the resources, primarily the ALS RAs, will likely still need to have a ruggedized Windows-based PC in order to interact with our older cardiac monitors, because those cardiac monitors have a special way of connecting that's really not supported in sort of the iOS version. So we'll have those. The other thing we'll probably have is for some of the specialized resources, we may even deploy this on iPhones and smaller devices. So we've got a lot of choices, but the primary rollout is going to be a combination of iPads and the GTAC ruggedized Windows 10 devices.
Great. Well, it sounds like it's a big improvement for us. I'm sure that the field will be pretty excited to get the new software. So great job getting this done. And I know hopefully it'll get all the approvals it needs. I know this is a really critical piece for everybody working in the field. So I look forward to seeing the rollout.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam President, if there's no comments, I'm happy to move the items in question.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. So let's have a voice vote on the remaining items.
And just to clarify for City Attorney, this is items 3A, 3C, and 3E that is moved to recommendations.
We
That's
have a hand
correct. Thank you.
raised. We have a hand raised. I've asked to unmute numerous times. I'm still waiting.
Okay. 310 ending in 25. Who is that?
259.
259.
Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Yeah, this is Patrick Butler, President of Los Bomberos. I think I may have jumped in too soon, but when we get down to the item about the IA report, will you just let me back in and I'll just listen in.
Very well.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, so then can we have a roll call vote?
Ibarra.
Aye.
Glazier.
Aye.
Hara.
Aye.
Ninberg.
Aye.
Woods Gray.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. So our first regular agenda item is a report by the department on the 2020 update Los Angeles Fire Department Gender Equity Plan. Who's presenting?
Chief Gerlich will present for you, Madam President.
Okay, thanks.
Chief, I'm asking to unmute because I don't have the power to unmute you. There you are. You're in. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, Commissioners and everyone.
Good morning.
So you have the Gender Equity Plan in front of you. And I wanted to just summarize for you. And I would ask you to turn to page 2. And I'm happy actually to report, looking at the top graph there, that from 2017 to current 2020, we've been able to sustain a 3% or higher of women on the job, which I think is fantastic, especially, you know, for me, just a personal comment, with 35 years on the job, we've come a long way. And that's exciting. And I think that we will continue on an upward trend. As soon as we get out of the COVID-19, we have a very robust training section and division, and they are doing a lot of very good things in recruitment. They have a lot of ideas and marketing in order to attract women to our organization. We have had some success with that. The girls' camps have been very successful when we were able to run those as well. Again, I think that most of us are in agreement that the COVID-19 has really hit everyone hard, and it definitely has hit us hard in that respect in terms of recruitment. On page 3, in the top third there, when we're looking at the little table with the high school magnet program, that particular program was one that we were able to continue during this time frame, and the percentage of girls in those programs came out to 29%, which again, for me, that's good. So we are still able to attract people that are interested, and we're able to keep them engaged in that. The Youth Fire Academy and the cadet program obviously are on hold due to the COVID-19, but those will resume. Chief Larson and recruitment has, you know, a lot of very good plans and a good staff over there. They're working hard and diligently to keep things in line so that when things open up the way that we would like, hopefully we're going to see an increase and we're going to be able to have a much greater and broader influence on our younger youth, specifically our women. And one other note is that we are working hard as well to identify within the organization the women that are eligible for promotion. And we have great mentors, and we continue to reach out to them and to highlight the areas and engage them in the importance of the inclusion of women, especially in the organization. And on one last note, I would like to add that we have 7 females currently in our drill tower class for 2020. End of report.
Thank you. And thank you also for the report. It was very thorough. It was very well done. So thank you for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Chief Gerlich?
I'd like to take this opportunity to say good morning to the chief, because this is the first time I've seen her since she's chief.
Good morning.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. This is the report is well done, although the information sometimes is there are questions to be raised. But is there any place that anyone knows how many females don't get through the probationary period? Is that kept up with by somebody?
Commissioner, this is the Fire Chief. Yeah, we do keep track of that through our recruitment services section.
I think it would be good if we could put that into this report at the next time we do it, because to know how many females we're missing, and then to know how many females failed in the training. I actually like to know how many females failed in the training since we started about 6 years ago. That would be an interesting, and to break it down ethnically also, because I would notice that looking at the chart that
we do have a long-standing. I'm sorry. We do have a long-standing report that tracks that I asked for in, might have been 2014, and it comes back periodically. I want to say like once a year or twice a year.
I would just think that we put it in here, just have all the information in one place when the report is done. I noticed that the African Americans on the 2015, it went down 2%. I don't know if there's any reason or explanation for that, but that number did go down.
We
2%.
did have 2 retirees.
Oh, is that what it was?
I believe that's what why that number is reflected. Yes.
Yeah, because I really like looking at the hard numbers as opposed to the percentages, because they always look better percentages than the real numbers. So you're probably right. That's probably what it is. Okay, very good. But thank you very much for the report. It's there's a lot of information here, and actually, I don't know. I just thought we would have had more than 44 women, although it's an increase, but 44 more than 44 women in 6 years, because that's like about 7 women a year, and that's not a lot. But
but we are working on it, and I feel very confident. I have to tell you, I am considered a short timer now, of course, unfortunately, but I do feel confident that with our recruitment staff and the programs that we have in place, I think that we will be able to attract more women and see that increase.
And you know what? I have confidence because you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say I second Jimmy Woods-Gray's comments and appreciate those. And I want to congratulate you, Chief Gerlich, on your promotion to chief. It was well earned. And thank you, Chief Terrazas, as well, for making sure that she was able to be in this position. I think that I second. I think the report was very comprehensive and a real honest assessment of where we're at, and I definitely appreciate that. And I want to congratulate you on the high school magnets. I think that was our goal was 30% female in all of the youth programs. So that is 29% is to me in my, both 30%. So I appreciate that. That's great. Recruitment is, I want to congratulate recruitment. I think we've seen solid numbers coming out of recruitment for the last, 6-7 years, and I'm so proud of the work recruitment has done and continues to do. I think getting, up to 9% applicants female is extraordinary. And that is the work of recruitment. I also want to acknowledge the slow uptick of women, but I do also want to note that the goal was 5% in 2020. And so while it is a slow uptick, we didn't meet our goal. And I just want to know, what do we think attributes to that? Because we do have we hired 107 women since January 2014, but we've lost about 41% of them. So just wondering, this is probably for the chief, a question for the chief. What do you think attributes to that?
Commissioner Ninberg, good question. I was asked way back when, several years ago, what would our goal be? And I said 5% in 5 years. And I said that without knowledge of the number of retirees. But I still stand by that. I think that's a goal we should continue to shoot for. If you look at the graph on page 2 at the top of it, it does show it's a slow but steady increase. We're at 3.5%, and I'm not sure if this includes the 7 females in our drill tower right now. If it does, that's good. If it doesn't, that's a little bit higher percentage. And we've had to reduce the size of our current drill tower because of budget constraints. We had to cut that class in half, which had an impact on the number of women. And then we also had to defer the April class in the next fiscal year. But over the following fiscal years, to address the significant number of retirements in January 2024, I look at that as a hiring opportunity to increase our progress with women as well as diversity.
Right. I mean, yes, and it does. And you do acknowledge here, resignations, terminations, and retirements of 44 women in the past 6 years. But do we have what might be good is to see how does that relate to the hiring of African Americans and the retention rate, as well as all races. I think that if we could come back with information on retention for all races and, of course, gender, I think that would be good to put in the next report as well, just so that we can, it has to be, we've got to compare it. There's nothing to compare it to. So,
Commissioner Ninberg, that's an excellent suggestion. We do have a recurring report, and we can bring it back. I don't recall the date of the last one. I think it was within the last year or so. Might have been a little bit longer, but it has the breakdown of gender and ethnicity in terms of success through the drill tower and through probation.
Yes, and also I think, but it also has, retirements here. So it's all kind of put into one lump number. If we could kind of break it out. Just, look, I think that it's important to look at these issues and then that gives us the opportunity to address them, like you said, and an opportunity to hire, and also see what are the issues, that are keeping people here or contributing to them leaving, for whatever reason. Let's see here. I had a couple questions on page 5. You mentioned a plan to develop methods to address bias in hiring. Is there, it is under key focus, key areas of focus, evaluate all parts of hiring process, and this is like personnel. And if there are any areas where women are disproportionately disqualified, develop methods to address those. Is that happening? And also, in the hiring process, if there's implicit bias.
You're fading out, Commissioner. We couldn't hear your last sentence.
Oh.
Or two.
Oh, sorry. You know what? My computer is, gotta get a microphone. I need to get a new one. Apologies. So, let's see. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Was your question on the bullet point about the hiring process under the key area of focus?
Key areas of focus. The bottom 2 about develop and enhance data hiring business. But what is the status of that?
Yeah, we really can't hear you. You're
you faded again.
Okay. What is the status of that? Can you hear me?
Yes, of the hiring process with the target solutions comment.
The key areas of focus, evaluate all parts of the hiring process to identify if there are areas where women are disproportionately disqualified and develop methods to address those areas if they exist. Did you see that? And
yes.
As well as evaluate the hiring process to see if there's bias in hiring. What is the status of that and the plan for that?
I don't have the answer for you, ma'am.
Is it Chief? I know you're new, Chief Gurley. I know that you're new to this position, so I think this is probably a question for the Chief.
Yeah, Commissioner, I don't have the answer to that either, other than to check in with personnel. I know that they have been strong partners in all our recruitment efforts, and that's an ongoing process to continue to make the process better for each new group of candidates. So let us research that by talking to personnel, and we'll get you an answer.
Okay, great. I think we could probably do, and we could just do a report back with all of these questions. Maybe we can discuss a time frame for that. And the other question, can you hear me now, or am I still having problems with my microphone?
We can hear you.
Okay. So on work environment, it says there are a couple things that kind of stuck out to me here, were that the majority of women participants from that focus group study done in 2019, that the majority of women participants reported negative treatment attributed to stereotypes and biases. This was in probationary and post-probationary. And all of the women experienced being drilled at the top 35 two-person extension ladder, and not given enough opportunities to practice the base position, which they felt was harder. I know that Chief, you had sent out a bulletin about that a while ago. but it seems like, I don't know when you sent it in comparison to when this focus group was done. Do you know?
No, Commissioner, I do not know the time frame.
So, and there was another issue of underreporting. So women, it says here, you know, women felt that they didn't want to report because many participants, you know, felt that you don't want to get labeled as, quote, that kind of girl complaining. Once you do something, then you're known as, quote, that kind of person. So, and it says this issue was expressed by 43% of the women polled in 2015 as well. And I think this goes back to the survey that we're doing, because the complaint tracking system is great if it works. But if people aren't reporting for fear, you know, whatever's, you know, their fears are, that I think that the only way to really address that is with, and you have it here, with the surveys. Unless, Chief, do you have any other ideas on how to kind of deal with this, as it's stated here, you know, 43% underreporting? So what are the issues there, and how do we, or how do you plan to address that?
Another good question, Commissioner. Further down on that same sheet on page 7, you'll see all those bullets of the training. I believe that we have to continue to train. We've had targeted training on implicit bias and various other topics related to EEO issues. That'll never stop. We have to continue to do that. The reluctance to report, we do have an anonymous option for anybody to make an anonymous complaint. But I believe the more important factor is just to emphasize training, for me to send regular messaging about having a positive work environment. I firmly believe that the bond that we have amongst each other is stronger than what separates us. And our bond is that we count on each other for our safety, sometimes our lives. So my goal is for people to create and maintain positive work environments at every opportunity.
These, I don't disagree with you on that. These trainings look like they, obviously 2020 was an anomaly, hopefully. It looks like that report was done in 2019, and all of these trainings have existed from 2013 to 2019. There is nothing in 2020. So do you see these trainings as working? Do you need to supplement them? If you've got, you know, the majority still underreporting, is there something else that we need to do?
Well, I think that the organizational study that is just starting will have more surveys, and there'll be more opportunities to learn about what still needs to be done. But I'm not naive. I do believe that we'll never be able to completely stop. We'll have to always have training,
sure,
because of the turnover of personnel and people promote. So the new element would be the organizational study, which will have a greater perspective in terms of numbers of people that participate in surveys.
Do you have a status of that?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, you cut out.
Oh, do you have the status of that?
Well, we're working on the funding piece, and it's still at the Innovation Commission. They had previously approved it. Recently, we got word that it may have stalled, and I've let the mayor's office know, and they're following up.
I thought it was funded. I thought it was funded in 2019.
You're correct, it was, and then the amount was swept out of our budget in a cost-saving move by the CAO. That's when I applied for the Innovation Commission funding, and they gave us preliminary approval, and right now it's still at the Innovation Commission.
Okay. Do you know when that we expect to hear back from that on that?
No, I have not heard a timeline for that. That just occurred about 2 weeks ago, maybe. So we're going to keep checking up on them to see if when we can expect that money to be released.
Yeah, this is a good example of how other aspects of the city, really important other agencies have an effect on our department, have an effect on our budget. And this happens without our consent sometimes.
Absolutely.
This happens all the time.
Right, exactly. And is this something that we need to do? And this is for the chief. Like, is this something that should take a priority? Is this something like, is there a problem with the culture that you see? I don't know.
No, I think we should do it. And I've been a strong advocate for it for the last 3 fiscal years. And when the money was swept, we immediately started looking for other options to replace that funding. So as soon as we get the funding, we'll move forward. We already have selected the vendor. That was a stakeholder group effort supported by the mayor's office. So the preliminary work has been done. We're just waiting for the funding element to come through.
Is there something that you can do in the meantime?
Well, right now we're tremendously stretched with our COVID vaccination and testing effort and our people testing positive. So we're kind of limited right now. The budget situation, we're projecting a $50 million deficit. 24 million is COVID related.
Mm-hmm.
So we really are, it is difficult to take on new projects. I think our best bet is to pursue this path with an organizational study and have an outside specialist come in and conduct surveys and make recommendations.
All right. No, I know these are extraordinary times. And so that is understood. I get that. But it is nice also that we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. So that is good.
I agree.
Yes. And the training you had on page 9, who is developing the annual training?
Where specifically are you looking at, Commissioner, on page 9?
It says establish permanent curriculum in core OSEP and COSEP that addresses the department's expectations on equity, inclusion, and professionalism. This training should also include message from the fire chiefs, which you've been doing. And the training should include it should be included in all core classes and at least annually in OSEP and COSEP. So just that, who's managing that? I assume it's Chief Gutierrez now. He's new to that, but I don't know. Or is it, I don't know whose department. Is it admin ops or training? I assume training.
We rely on a combination of emergency operations to determine curriculum in OSEP and COSEP. Mm-hmm. And then Chief Gutierrez, in his new role, replacing Chief Rideout, will have input into core, which is what we use for new officers that are newly promoted. So these curriculums change a little bit every time they're offered. We review the curriculum ahead of time, I approve it, and then they present the class.
Okay, so is training going to present the training?
It is presented through in-service training, and it's a collaborative effort of emergency operations, myself, and various other parts of our department that have a role in the curriculum.
So it is, wait, so I'm asking, yes. So is it established already? It says established permanent curriculum in core.
We do have a base curriculum that we look at and we update for the next presentation.
For equity, inclusion, and professionalism already.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, you cut out.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I know. I promise I will get a new computer. Yes. So you do have that training already, correct?
Yes, for several years we presented a core, OSEP, and COSEP.
Okay, can you send that out? Can we see it for the equity, inclusion, and professionalism? I just would like to see it. I think that, and if there's anything else we need to add to it, would be great.
Okay, we'll look at the last offering, the curriculum, and provide that to you.
Perfect, excellent. And I want to congratulate you for the LAFD Training Institute, the creation of that. That is, and I appreciate the leadership on that. That is critical to the elevation of all members, and certainly will level the playing field. Are you tracking success in diversity, race, and gender? Do we have that yet?
In terms of their participation in the Institute?
Yeah, participation and completion.
I would have to check with Chief Hisson.
Okay.
I'm sure he has some data on that.
Yeah, can we get that?
Sure.
Awesome. So I think maybe just the report back will include that. And, you know, getting, you know, the training that exists and then possible training that will come. And yes, I think that if we could just get a report back in maybe 90 days.
Well,
it could go back to the gender equity, it could just be the gender equity plan. I would just like to see these numbers, see where we're going, what's the status, get the status of, you know, the surveys. We have annual surveys here.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm getting guidance that we need to stay on the topic of the report.
That's in the report. Those are all in the report.
Commissioner Nimberg, Chief Everett here. Can I just get a clarification on what your request is for 90 days so I can put down the particulars?
Okay, so can we get, having a hard time. So can we get information, the tracking success on the LAFD Training Institute? If we could get a report back on the status of the study and what the training is going to be. Okay, so the study, which we have, but the plan for the training for COSEP, OSEP, that you have had and will be changing, and the surveys on the environment, the annual surveys, and what we need to do for that as well.
Got it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And I do, yeah, like I said, I do want to congratulate you again on the high school magnet programs, the creating these institutes, but also, you know, looking to see where it is we have issues and what we need to do to address them.
Okay, so is that it on this matter? Can we?
I see a hand. What's the hand for?
Okay.
Oh, and also the training plan for 2021. I know that recognizing training is an important element. And these are the following actions we've taken since 2014. Since there's nothing since 2019, if we could get a list of plans for 2021 would be good as well. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a public comment from 818 and ending in 108.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, this is Chris. Hi, this is Chris Larson, president of the LAWFS, Women in Fire Service. I like this report. Congratulations, Chief Gerlich, on presenting a comprehensive report. I think one of the things that stood out to me was the comments that were aggregated on page 7, which were basically, you know, you don't want to get labeled as a girl for complaining. That literally took me back 30 years to my drill tower, where I was pulled aside in a drill yard and told, you need to decide what kind of woman you want to be on this job. So I think while this is kind of anecdotal, it's historical in that it's repeating itself continuously. And I think we owe it to ourselves as an organization, if Deloitte survey is going to be delayed, that between the fire chief, the COA, and UFLAC, that we try, and the stakeholders organizations, that we try to come up with a survey of our own internally that maybe could be aggregated by the independent assessor, so that we can see where we are historically at this particular point in time, so that now we're not continuing to repeat this pattern of behavior that is specifically labels women as complainers, whiners, and potentially setting us back for not only their probationary period, but going further for their ability to promote in the future, and not wanting to do that because of perceived inequities just because you're a woman. I mean, clearly we already have to work twice as hard to get half as much recognition, and I'm hoping that the next generation of women that are coming on this job and getting ready to promote in the future won't have to deal with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person that raised hand and unmute themselves is going to be the Stentorians. You have 2 minutes. Please identify yourself and continue.
Good morning, Board of Fire Commissioners. My name is Alicia Thompson. Good morning. I am the operations manager for the Los Angeles City Stentorians and a proud citizen of this great city. On behalf of the organization, I would like to acknowledge Black History Month by providing the following historical statement. In 1892, Sam Haskins became the first African-American firefighter to be employed by the Los Angeles Fire Department. He was tragically killed while out on a call, also becoming the first member to die in the line of duty. His grave was unmarked for years before the Stentorians respectfully paid homage to his service through purchase of a headstone, officially marking his gravesite. The Stentorians were formed in 1954 by Arnett Hartsfield Jr., better known as the Rookie, to combat racial injustice and inequalities faced by African-American firefighters during that time period. Since then, our mission has evolved to include recruitment, retainment, and retention of our membership, which includes over 500 fire personnel from the Los Angeles City Fire Department. Thank you for allowing this platform to address the board.
Thank you. I think that was for general comment, but we'll take it here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Freddie Escobar, I've requested several times that you unmute yourself. Your hand is raised. I'll ask again. Okay, you're on.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Freddie Escobar, President of United Firefighters of Los Angeles City, Local 112, representing over 3,400 brothers and sisters of the LAFD. I just want you guys to know UFLAC will continue to support and be committed not only to gender, but ethnicity, race, and be a reflection of the city we serve. And we've proven that for the last years, many years. UFLAC's position, as stated multiple times in past fire commissions, is to maintain our standards regardless of gender, race, or ethnicity. I know there's been a lot of discussion about who's the top person or who's the base person, but there's a model. Even though I'm not assigned to the field, I try to work 2 to 3 times a month to stay in touch with reality out in the field, and it's on weekends or holidays. And the men and women continue to be the best department in the world. And they have a motto that says, we train as our life depends on it. And it's simply going out there and being the best firefighter you can be, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity. There's nobody that is being isolated. 32 years on the job, and I can proudly say that in today's fire department in every single station, it is a learning, working environment, period. And it has to do with a lot of the work that we're doing in collaboration with all the stakeholders and the fire chief. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Pat Butler, I see your hand is
Yes.
raised and you're on mute, sir. You're ready.
Got it. Thank you very much. And I just want to echo the comments by both the women in the fire service, stentorians, and President Freddie Escobar in supporting equity in the department. I do support the women in the fire service and thank Chief Gerlich for her leadership. You know, in 36 years that she's been on the department, she's assisted in plowing the road to equity, and now her next generation of women leader in the departments will assist in what I call refining and paving that road. But in agreement with President Escobar, I also believe that, you know, as always, maintaining the standards of our department are central to our ability to deliver service. And I know that we all stand for the same. So we support working with stakeholders and the fire chief. And thank you for allowing us to provide comment on this matter.
Thank you. That's all the comments we have, right?
Yes, I believe. Let me double check if there are any additional hands raised. No, I don't have any hand raised, but I do have an open mic on 141. If you're wanting to comment on this item, raise your hand. If not, I'm going to go ahead and mute you.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and vote?
Motion?
Do we have a motion?
Second.
I move to adopt item 4A, recommendation for item 4A.
Yeah, I second.
Okay. So why don't we have a voice vote, roll call vote?
Ibarra.
Aye.
Leisure.
Aye.
Hara.
Aye.
Ninberg.
Aye.
Woods Gray.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So moving on to 4B, which is report for the independent assessor and department response relative to Los Angeles Fire Department audit of complaints of misconduct in 2019.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Sue Stengel, the independent assessor. I'm presenting the 2019 annual review of the department's handling of complaints of misconduct. This report contains information related to the number of complaints filed and closed in 2019, complaint categories, and whether the department followed new policies related to categorizing complaints, whether a complaint was filed by an LAFD employee or not, and whether the subject was a sworn or civilian member. We included the entity within the LAFD that was assigned to investigate the complaint and complaint adjudications. We discussed cases that were not or could not be investigated within the statute of limitations and the number and nature of cases awaiting a hearing before a board of rights. Finally, we compared the 2019 information with information from 2017 and 2018. We reported our findings and made recommendations. I would like to thank the department, particularly people in Professional Standards Division, for help and cooperation that we received. And I'm happy to address any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Should we have the department do its presentation and then we can take both of them together? Chief Gutierrez?
Good morning, Madam President, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Chief Terrazas, City Attorney. Stephen Gutierrez, Assistant Chief, acting as a TSB Commander at this time. In front of you, you have Board Report 21-08, which is the Department response to the Independent Assessor's Audit of Closed Cases year-end 2019. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Office of Independent Assessor and the collaborative efforts, and once again, the detailed work which really made the department better in processing cases involving misconduct in the year 2019. I'd also like to make a special acknowledgement for those members assigned to PSD. During these real unprecedented times during this COVID, we've asked three things of them for nearly 1 year, and that was to stay informed, keep focused, and stay resilient. They've not only done that, but they have performed stellar. A large majority of the staff they're assigned is civilian and working through the nuances of working virtually and trying to adapt to the new have done an amazing job. So I just wanted to acknowledge them on the record. I'd like to just give a quick summary, and of course the recommendation is that the board receive and file. The Office of Independent Assessor audit cases that were closed in the Los Angeles Fire Department's complaint tracking system from years 2019 through 2009 through 2019, which assessed the number of case closures in 2019, complaints by category, most frequent allegations, whether the complaint were filed internally or externally, the number of complaints assigned to investigate, adjudications, statute of case closures, and cases pending before a Board of Rights. In that audit, the Independent Assessor Office made 8 recommendations, all of which the department addresses. I'd like to briefly go through each one of those 8 and how the department has addressed them. Recommendation number 1, the OIA continues to recommend the department upgrade or replace the current CTS and DTS system. However, in the meantime, add a search function to the current CTS program to facilitate a search for cases coded with CTS as, quote, sensitive, unquote. Include an ability to search for an open or closed case during a defined period of time, allow DTS for searches on all cases pending before Board of Rights, and configure CTS designated cases by adjudication and out of statute concurrently. The department concurs with the OIA's recommendation and has already begun collaboration with the department's Information Technology Bureau, ITB, to create such functionality within the current CTS program. We've acknowledged previously on other reports some of the issues related to the CTS program and the ability to the search, but we continue to refine them and even have made workarounds because of the recommendations made by the independent assessor. Number 2, the OIA continues to recommend the department pursue avenues of accountability to maintain and improve the high quality of care provided to patients and to develop policies and procedures for EMS Bureau to uniformly and essentially track issues and concerns related to emergency medical care and treatment of patients that have not previously been captured. Again, the department concurs with the OIA's recommendation and continues to ensure that emergency medical technicians, EMTs, and paramedics of the LAFD provide timely, high quality, and culturally sensitive patient care. To that end, the Department's Emergency Medical Services Bureau has an EMS Quality Improvement Unit, QIU, which performs retrospective reviews of EMS incidents, including cardiac arrest, random reviews, Department of Health Services mandated reviews, and special requests. The EMS Bureau also has 14 EMS battalion captains who provide real-time medical oversight as well as a prospective and post-incident EMS training to the field. As the department may become aware of alleged EMS policy violations via a number of methods, this includes an incident that is reviewed by the EMS QIU, a complaint by a base hospital or receiving hospital, an incident reviewed by the medical director, a field issue identified by one of 14 EMS captains, or a complaint from a patient and or their family of a member of the general public. Most policy violations found by EMS QIU can be handled via education training to the involved members. The level of education training that is provided depends on the number of variables, which includes the nature of the errors, whether the errors and or policy violations may constitute gross negligence, and whether there was a significant adverse effect or catastrophic patient outcome. The EMS policy violations that meet DHS reference 214 HCS 1798.2 are appropriately investigated, tracked, and adjudicated by the Department's Professional Standards Division. These violation parameters include gross negligence, physical abuse of patients, fraud, or substance abuse. Third recommendation, the OIA recommends that the department develop a strategy for reducing the loss of equipment and incidents that lead to allegations of discourtesy. Again, the department concurs with the OIA's recommendation and has already begun a strategy which includes department bulletins which advise members of current policies and practices related to citizen requests and complaints. Additionally, the department is currently updating policies related to lost and or stolen equipment. Recommendation number 4, the OIA continues to recommend the department revise current policies and procedures for reporting lost or stolen equipment to reflect the department's priority and include a timeline for reporting the lost or theft. The department again concurs with the OIA and is currently in the process of revising and updating policies on lost equipment according to conform and adherence to the Firefighter Bill of Rights to include a timeline. 5th, the OIA recommends the department further define or reduce the number of complaint categories to bring uniformity and consistency to the CTS process. This should include addressing discourtesy complaints that include an allegation of improper patient care and or treatment. Again, the department concurs with the recommendation and is made by the OIA and has amended a current policy related to discourtesy categorization to ensure that all allegations related to EMS cases are uniformly coded in the CTS process. Number 6, while the department is in the process of updating and computerizing traffic accident tracking process, the OIA recommends that the department implement an interim procedure for ensuring that traffic accident cases are referred to PSD and or entered in CTS in a timely manner. Again, the department concurs with the recommendation and has begun updating and revising the department bulletin 10-12, which is accident procedures, to include the necessary changes which reflect the OIA recommendations. Number 7, the OIA recommends the department utilize or create an alcohol or disorder training which specifically addresses the unique stresses and circumstances of the fire service. The training can be assigned as part of education-based discipline in settlement agreements and or during in-service training early in and throughout a member's career. Again, the department concurs with the OIA's recommendation and is collaborating with stakeholders to include United Firefighters of Los Angeles and Chief Officers Association to address substance abuse disorder training and outreach programs. Additionally, the department is seeking input from the department's existing education-based partner, that being the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, regarding additional courses which address the OIA's recommendation. And finally, number 8, the OIA continues to recommend the department develop and present a guideline related to the time for convening a hearing before a Board of Rights. The current statutory authority does not require a hearing timeline. However, the department has been proactive in its efforts in addressing those cases which have resulted in a board hearing. In conclusion, the department recognizes that a complete and thorough investigation is essential to that the department handle complaints of misconduct appropriately. And to that end, the department has recently made significant changes in safeguards as a result of the audit to enhance the investigative process based on the OIA recommendations. And I'll take questions at this time. Thank you.
There's a hand raised, Madam President. I don't know if you'd like to take that before the motion and the second and prior to the roll call.
I have a question. I just have 1 or 2 questions.
Yes, go ahead.
So it sounds like there's a lot of agreement here, which is great. It sounds like the IA and PSD have been working well together, which is really good to see. So just it looked like there were 2 areas of disagreement on the recommendations. So just wanted to ask a few questions about that. On the the question of the EMS tracking, I certainly understand there's complexity in terms of how to kind of respect the practice of medicine, if you will, or paramedicine, while at the same time still trying to keep good track of things to make sure that we don't have individuals who might make repeated mistakes that don't rise to the level of gross negligence, but perhaps suggest that maybe it's just not the right, that maybe you know, they need something beyond just being retrained. Perhaps we could have a longer conversation about that another time, where we just learn more about how EMS QIU works, and you know, how tracking might happen in a non-punitive setting that allows them just to keep track, so that if there are some individuals that perhaps are having difficulty even after being retrained, that there's some way of knowing that. So maybe that's something we could agendize for a future meeting, you know, later.
Yes, sir. I think that would be a worthy cause to get a better understanding of the department's QI process and how it interacts with the professional standards division. But I also want to acknowledge there was, like you mentioned at the beginning, great collaboration with the OIA's office, specifically in the areas of EMS. As a result, we've made some internal changes in policy, internal policies related to EMS specifically, which I think have really shored up a lot of the areas that were somewhat inconsistent in the past. So that collaboration on the front end has really helped the department tremendously.
Great. Yes, I'd love to hear more about that, and in general the role of the EMS captains, which, you know, I think actually could be an interesting discussion for the board to hear at another time as well. Just in general, understanding the role of EMS captains, I think it is they play an important role that is, I think, not too well known. So seeing that here, perhaps that's something we could learn about as well, maybe this summer.
Yes, sir.
My other question is just around the 8th recommendation. So understanding the point here that it doesn't require, under statutory authority, a hearing timeline. Can you tell me what your reticence might be to have a timeline, a guideline? Because it seems like there's a disagreement here, and there has been past requests, but so I just wanted to understand more what the hesitancy might be to having guidelines here.
Yes, sir. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the report, you know, the unprecedented conditions that we're at now in light of COVID, if we were to have any type of stringent guideline, even if it were a year, the department clearly could not have made it. There has been significant impacts in the ability to carry on the normal business as we know as a result of COVID. So that's one of the things that I think, in looking at normal business practices, the department's involved and really took a close look at a lot of things, and we continue to reflect on it. We're not saying that it's one that should not be looked at. However, we're finding out more and more with things that are going on and how it relates to the different areas in the department, how it functions. And having timelines that would be essentially handcuffing the department to operate and to act would be one that we have to look at even closer. So as this rolls out more, we'll get a better idea. So if that gives you kind of an idea of those timelines are important, where we couldn't even operate. I mean, there were times where we clearly couldn't operate at all in terms of even convening a board because of COVID-related issues.
Yeah. So notwithstanding the current circumstances, I guess what I'm wondering is you know, when I read guideline, I don't see sort of stringent. I mean, that's my interpretation. I'd be interested to hear from the independent assessor what she had in mind here, but I guess when I see that from a policy standpoint, I see that as like, hey, listen, this is the time frame in which we think normally something should go, recognizing that there may be specific circumstances in which something goes longer, something goes shorter. And again, notwithstanding COVID, which I think we all hope is a temporary circumstance. But I think in the past when we've discussed this, it was pre-COVID. Now we're sort of in the middle of COVID. But I do still wonder, you know, if is there some version of a guideline that at least becomes a metric by which we can see like, hey, are we generally operating within this? And if not, why not? Just kind of to hold against. But I put that to the independent assessor and just from Ms. Stengel, just try to learn a little more about what you think might work here.
So I think that there's definitely room to discuss the actual time that we're talking about. My biggest concerns are the extraordinary length of time that some of these cases have been pending a hearing before a Board of Rights. So one of the things that the commission should be mindful of is that it generally takes the investigation, it generally takes about a year to complete an investigation. So when something has been pending a Board of Rights for more than 8 years, that really means the incident then happened most likely almost 9 years ago. So my concerns are twofold, really. One is that the discipline, well, first of all, let me back up and explain, as I've stated in reports before, the way the department works is once a member is served with their discipline, in this case, either suspension days or a directed Board of Rights, and then once the member in a chosen Board of Rights asks for that Board of Rights, the dates for their suspension are rescinded and they never take their suspension days. So the actual discipline is not being served close in time to when the incident occurred, or really when the investigation was completed and the person was served with discipline. And then that in turn has an effect potentially of members of the department seeing that people who commit wrongdoing are not disciplined.
Got it. So thanks for that context. So Chief Gutierrez, if I might make a suggestion here, maybe rather than trying to establish, so firstly, it seems like this happens occasionally. How many boards extend beyond, let's say, 2 years?
Commissioner, normally, I mean, I can't answer that question because right now we're in the middle of something that, like this pandemic, that it's
before this, though, in your experience.
In my
I
experience,
think it's in the report, actually.
yeah, I
not
believe,
very many, right?
Yeah, I think the information is contained in the report, and mind you, I think it was key that the independent assessor spoke of was the difference between a department-directed and member-opted board, and then there's some anomalies with each one of those cases as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as it's black and white and clear cut that this is just ongoing, unable to settle or resolve type of issue. Each one of those are very unique in itself. So I know the next report discusses audits of the settlements, and we can actually talk in more detail on that as it relates to pending Board of Rights as well.
So if you look at page 28 of the independent assessor's report, it tells you how long each of them have been pending.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that it has that. I guess my concern, because it's definitely a problem that a lot of the Board of Rights have been pending many years, and that some of them, are going on 10 years since the date of the incident or events that are part of the investigation. At the same time, I am mindful that there's just some structural issues having to do with our department, but also with the Firefighter Bill of Rights and sort of that statutory scheme that we can't really vary it, and there's not that much that we can do to change that. So it's definitely worth discussing because there's bigger policy issues here that, it's definitely a problem. It's just, I don't know how much the commission can do or how much Chief Terrazas can do given the interplay of all of these things and due process rights and then, and their right to appeal. And also the fact that Board of Rights aren't always final. because they have a right to appeal for that. So we need to sort of, PSD, the department needs to consider all of these things in deciding, because it's also just not good policy to push a board of rights hearing to lose it, or to win it and then just have the member just, get what that person needs on the appeal. So there are structural issues here that we just kind of need to think through. And I don't have an answer. I agree, these are all problems, but they're complicated.
Madam President, this is a fire chief. I appreciate your comments. It is a very complicated topic. I think the distinction between department directed versus member opted is an important one. The directed boards are the more serious offenses. A member could request a board with a one-day suspension proposal, and that's a charter right that they have. Many times the serious offenses take priority, and we fast forward those, and the lower penalty cases fall down the list. But it's kind of rare that we have a lot of boards. I think, from my memory, we average maybe 3, maybe 4 a year, on an average year. I do think maybe a guideline is a way to go, because it doesn't put us in a corner, but it is something that we can work towards, a guideline in terms of timeframes for directed boards and for member opted boards.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I recognize the complexity of it all, and certainly, we can't operate our discipline system based on whether we think a member is going to appeal or not. I mean, that's their right to do. So I think the chief can only do what's in his power to do. After that, I think there's a certain acceptance that, unfortunately, that there are things that are beyond our power. So that's obviously nothing we can change. But I think that I think the chief is right there. That there could be a guideline in place that isn't the level of restrictive that perhaps Chief Gutierrez might be worried about. One other thing to think about is, rather than saying a board has to be completed in this amount of time, is if it makes sense for there to be some kind of an escalation, where if something has been pending for more than a certain amount of time, that it gets more attention from the executive office there, so that it, again, there might be a case where it's like, look, there's just nothing to do about it. It goes on for all this time, and it's just this deeply complicated thing we can't do anything about. I think from my perspective, it would give me some comfort to know that, if a board had been pending longer than, 3 years, that the chief was aware, was looking at it, and was advising on it. So maybe that's something that you could consider as you construct it in a way that is responsive to the fact that there are things that are out of our control, but still just, gives some sense that it's been escalated and it's getting attention at the highest level.
Yes, sir. The department will further explore in that area and take all those considerations that were mentioned today and factor those in as well. Thank you.
Okay, great. If you don't mind, just to the Madam President's request, perhaps I think she was suggesting we have another conversation about this. Maybe as you guys discuss this internally, maybe we could have another discussion about, or we could see what you come up with maybe in 3 months' time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that would be great.
It's also part of the charter, right? So there's just a lot of different various levels of legal guidance that we get on this. So yeah, I think it would be helpful. I also just want to say about the report, thank you. It was very thorough. I know that you spent a lot of time on this for the independent assessor and also for the department. This is a complicated sort of matter. I mean, as far as I know, this is the only fire department in the country that has this much of a developed sort of disciplinary system. So I always sort of think of what we do at PSD as sort of an experiment, because we sort of borrow a lot of stuff from law enforcement, which doesn't really apply here. So we're sort of developing our own thing, and it's challenging. And that's why there's a lot of things that used to be put in here, like EMS stuff, that we've sort of moved out. And there's some new things that we're experimenting with. But it's kind of an experiment. And so, we're a big part of it. The commission's a big part of it. The independent assessor and the department, thank you for, just spending the time to think about all of these complicated issues. So thanks. Do we have any? Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to move it, but if there's comment.
Yeah, I think there's a comment. I see Pat Butler. Leticia, can you acknowledge Chief Butler?
Chief Butler, you have 2 minutes. Thank you for unmuting yourself.
Great, thank you very much. I'm just gonna, I have some comments here. Hopefully stay within the 2 minutes. Just a little bit of background about the report we're reviewing here and you guys are gonna vote on. I have some general comments. First of all, the Bomberos were established in the 60s and our goal was to help underserved communities and Latino firefighters. And today that tradition continues. My general comments are about this report are about the treatment of communities of color. When I read this report, it talks a lot about cultural issues and mistreatment of patients, especially those that involve culturally sensitive issues. I think it's important. The Bomberos would like to see any allegations down the road broken down by racial background. Look at our trends. Our concern is that brown and black communities may be mistreated at a higher rate than Caucasians. Next, there are a lot of recommendations put forth by the independent assessor, but like many of the reports that come out of that office, there's no funding, and it just becomes another three-ring binder on the shelf. Policy without resources or funding is just rhetoric, and as some of you spoke earlier, quickly our accounts get swept from the CAO. And so just as we develop policies, if you're not going to put funding behind it, then there's really nothing that's going to really provide it substantially. Lastly, just on this, a comment about Board of Rights. Personally, I've probably chaired more boards of rights than other chief officers currently on the job. But I'll tell you that the Board of Rights, as Commissioner Ibarra, President Ibarra says, yeah, they're adopted in 1060 of the city charter. And also we're guided by the Firefighter Bill of Rights. And a concern I have is that when the department says, oh, it's opted or directed, that has no bearing on the standard of proof. And those are equal in the eyes of the board. Now, looking forward,
2 minutes.
I want to really throw a big shout out to the chief and UFLAC for the mental health awareness and the behavioral health center they've developed. I think that's a great place to put funding to eliminate potential issues in the field of behavioral issues. A lot of those stem from stress and job-related stress. Community involvement is foundational to developing trust. I think the department should look to really build out community engagement similar to the LAPD Community Safety Partnership. And one thing we should do is we should offer bilingual bonuses to all LAFD members and not make it this, system of haves and have-nots.
Madam President, I believe the speaker's 2 minutes are up.
Okay. Leticia, did you keep track?
Yes, I called 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Butler. We appreciate you. You also have a public comment at the end if you want to add more. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So can we vote on this? Do I have a motion?
Sir, move to adopt the recommendations for item 4B.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Can we have a voice vote or a roll call vote?
Laura?
Aye.
Glazier?
Aye.
Hara?
Aye.
Ninberg?
Aye.
Woods Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So moving on to 4C is another report by the independent assessor on department response relative to Los Angeles Fire Department audit of settlement agreements in 2019.
Commissioners, you asked our office to assess the department's settlement agreements and the state of education-based discipline, otherwise known as EBD. The department began the EBD program with a pilot in 2015. You asked us for information related to the members who are participating in EBD, the courses that are included in the program, and whether members were committing misconduct after completing their courses. And then finally, you asked that we do this in collaboration with the department, which of course we did. Our findings and recommendations are in the report. And I'll take questions, I presume, after Chief Gutierrez presents.
Thank you. Chief Gutierrez.
Good morning once again. In front of you is Board of Fire Commissioners File 21-09, which is the Department response to the Independent Assessor's Audit of Settlements 2019. The OIA conducted an audit of all settlements entered into by the Los Angeles Fire Department from the summer of 2015 through the year-end 2019. The OIA assessed the number of settlements which contained education-based discipline, which is EBD, whether the department complied with the policies adopted from the 2017 policy, rate of recidivism with an EBD settlement in place, ranks of members who enter settlements, and determined whether the misconduct was resulted in a settlement which was committed off-duty. Through this audit, the independent assessor made 6 recommendations, all of which the department addresses. I'd like to quickly go through those 6 and then conclude with questions. Number 1 recommendation, the department maintain and update a list of cases that have been settled until the DTS system can be upgraded to allow for a search for cases that were settled. The department reported that this recommendation has been implemented. The department concurs with this recommendation by the OIA and has implemented policy which articulates that all settlements and related documents, including, and I'd like to provide an edit to the document provided to you in this report. It should read, include the required authorization memorandum and not justification memorandum. Be uploaded into the current DTS system, which is a Google Doc that is used and is accessible. The department also agreed that the limitations in DTS make the system challenging to conduct narrow searches for these cases. And we find this all the time, looking for searches just with the system itself. Since the adoption of the EBD program, the department has maintained a separate tracking system which contains all settlements that have EBD component. Per the OIA's recommendation, the department has expanded that tracking system to include all settlements. So now, as opposed to before, we had an electronic tracker for EBD. Now we fold in all settlements which are executed into that and also put it into DTS. Number 2, the CTS and DTS system be upgraded or replaced to include the capability to search for cases that have been settled. Again, the department concurs with the OIA's recommendation and agrees that the updates to the CTS and DTS to assist system deficits are necessary and should continue to be a priority for the department. To date, the department has met with the department's information officer and provided a list of recommendations and modifications to the system. While the department is waiting for the upgrades, it considers in replacing a system, the department has been very proactive in implementing a number of workarounds and modifications to address those system issues. To date, I think we've adopted 9 internal policies at PSD specifically to deal in and around CTS issues and coding, etc. Number 3, the EBD policy be amended to include a requirement that request for extensions, the reason for the request, and whether or not the extension was granted be documented in DTS. This is not in the current policy. However, we agree with the recommendation. We've in fact adopted and codified a policy. In part, the policy is a member's written request for an extension to make a required EBD, to take the required EBD course, which should also contain a reason for the request, shall be immediately placed in the case file by the PSC staff member responsible for uploading the related executed settlement agreement. The PSC staff member responsible for uploading and related executed settlement agreement shall also immediately be recorded in the comment section of DTS, the date the member's request and the reason for the request. As the current system, both CTS and DTS do not have the ability to timestamp, the comment section in this case would serve as a chronological log of the system and documents being uploaded. To date, the PSD commander's decision regarding the request, approval, and/or denial shall also be recorded in DTS comments by the PSD staff member responsible for uploading the related executed agreements. If the PSD commander's decision is in written form, as example would be an email, that document shall immediately be placed in the case file by the PSD staff member responsible for uploading relating executed documents. So these two recommendations are really worthy for the department, specifically to PSD, to better tracking in the current system that we have. Number 4, when the settlement agreements are uploaded into DTS, the department shall indicate in the comment section in DTS that the agreement was uploaded and the date of the upload. Again, a department policy was already created to memorialize this requirement. The current disciplinary tracking system does not have the function, as I mentioned earlier, to timestamp and record when attachments are included, including settlement agreements, which are uploaded in the system. In an effort to address this issue in response to the audit specifically, on May 4th, 2020, the department established a procedure that ensures compliance with the department's policy for discipline settlement agreements and accurately stamps or timestamps and records when executed settlement agreements are uploaded to DTS. And in part, the policy reads, in compliance with the department's policy for discipline settlement agreements, executed settlement agreements shall be uploaded into DTS within 5 days of the final execution of the agreement. This is in alignment with the 2017 adopted policy by the Commission. After an executed settlement is uploaded in DTS, the PSD staff member responsible for uploading the executed agreement shall immediately record in the comment section of the DTS the date the settlement was uploaded. So essentially, we timestamp it now. Number 5, the department permanently discontinue assigning EBD courses which a member attended prior to signing a settlement agreement. The department concurs with the recommendation. And finally, number 6, the department developed standards or practice for measuring the success of the EBD program. The department concurs with the OIA's recommendation with the acknowledgement that, as noted by the OIA, recidivism is one measure of success, but studies about recidivism suggest that success will not be fully determined until 5 years after the course completion. So, and looking at the 2017 policy and compliance with that, 5 years out, in most studies, we'll be able to get actually a better accurate measurement of recidivism. But I can tell you, in looking at those settlements that have been enacted since 2017, I believe there's one where there is some partial recidivism, which clearly not a related similar case. However, we continue to track. And then in conclusion, the department recognizes that consistency and accuracy through the investigative process is essential to ensure that the department handles complaints of misconduct appropriately. To that end, the department has made significant changes and safeguards to enhance the investigative process based on the OIA's recommendation. And I'm ready for questions.
Thank you. This is just precisely what I was referring to before, that this is a good example of sort of innovation with respect to some how we deal with discipline. And overall, I mean, it seems like we're moving in the right direction with this, and that this is something that we perhaps should expand. I'm wondering how we were talking earlier about substance abuse issues in the department and how we're using settlement agreements to sort of deal with that.
I think it's a broad topic, a very large broad topic, and when we're looking at settlement agreements in line with misconduct in and around related to substance and substance-related issues, all those settlement agreements do have a lot of provisions that are requirements related to the substance issues which cause the misconduct. I think from a large perspective, in terms of the department as a whole, along with stakeholders, the department is looking closely at those, and as mentioned earlier, the efforts of behavioral health and some of those things. Specifically to the misconduct piece, we are looking at some of the courses that the Sheriff's Academy currently use and seeing if we can adopt those. So they're kind of two different issues, however, interrelated, I guess. I hope that gives you a little more context.
Yes, a little bit. Independent assessor, Sue Stengel, do you have anything, do you want to add about that?
Because we saw an uptick in I'll just call them substance abuse related cases such as DUIs, although those aren't always substance abuse related cases. We recommended that the department look into creating a course that addresses specific stressors for firefighters. And while we appreciate the partnership with the Sheriff's Department and absolutely think it should continue, and we believe the department should look into classes related to substance abuse, our position is that the department should consider bringing in some component that deals directly with fire department stressors.
Sorry, just so I'm clear, so what the report is about education-based discipline, which doesn't include like substance abuse treatments. That's correct, right? It excludes that. It's just behavior that can be addressed through education, which is different than treatments.
Yes, ma'am. Currently, all the courses that are approved to be included in EBD, at this time, we don't have a substance abuse related courses. We are looking where the sheriffs do have some, in fact, and evaluating those if, in fact, those would be included or can be included.
I'm not sure that education would do the trick. I mean, I think we would think about treatment. We are talking about different methods that UFLAC, for example, has just opened a center for mental health and substance abuse, but that wouldn't be encompassed here, right? Is that correct, Sue? Ms. Stengel?
So if there were a course that would qualify under the education-based discipline that's being offered through UFLAC's new center, then I would encourage the department to consider that to, in the future, become part of the education-based discipline program. But I don't know what the plan is for the center as far as offering particular courses rather than individual counseling, which we do believe in. As we stated, this course should not be in lieu of individual counseling. It should be in addition to.
Counseling or treatment, something like that.
Right.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay. Other questions, commissioners?
So it's good to see the program is taking hold. I think it seems like it's having the intended effect. I think that we talked about all those years ago, and in reference to the conversation we had earlier about the Board of Rights, I think one of the ideas of this was to reduce the numbers going to the Board of Rights, and it seems like it's, at that time there was, I think, 50 pending or something like that, Board of Rights, and so it seems like it has had the intended impact there, and I think in another year or two we'll have some really solid data suggest that it's that people who do go through the program don't repeat the behavior that we were working to correct. So keep working on it, and again, glad to see the collaboration between the independent assessor and PSD. So happy to see the work happening. Also want to just give a congratulations to the independent assessor. I know that this is it's a lot of work to go through all those files there, and I want to thank you for all your efforts and the efforts of your office to get through everything and go through all those details to make sure the programs are working well.
Thank you. I'd also like to take the opportunity, if I may, to thank Chief Gutierrez as he moves on. He has been a great partner. And I wish him well, and I look forward to working with Chief Kepner.
Thank you to you both. Before we move on, can you, Chief Gutierrez, did you have an amendment to this report that you needed to make?
Yes, Madam President. If I could amend page 2, it would be line 2 under the wording, the required justification should read the required authorization memorandum.
So page 2 of your report.
It would be on page 2, line 2, which currently reads, including the required justification, should read, including the required authorization.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, and congratulations on your new appointment. So we'll be working with you in a different capacity. And thanks to you both for all your work on this. So do we have a motion? Oh, we have Chief Butler. Leticia, can you recognize Chief Butler?
Chief Butler, thank you for unmuting. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. I just want to really push and encourage that the department, the fire chief, and UFLAC, we look towards our behavioral health center for drug and alcohol related issues. I think that's the way where we invest in our employees. And I know this is a public meeting, and I'm going to break my anonymity, and that's okay. But over 26 years ago, I got sober as a result of UFLAC's Employee Assistance Program. And, you know, by the grace of this great department and the union I had supporting me 26 years later, you know, I haven't had to touch a drink or do anything foolish like that. But I want to let you guys know, put a face to the name to tell you that there's a lot of firefighters out there that struggle and do get in trouble, and they need a place where they can get the help. And I think that the Behavioral Health Center is the fantastic place and opportunity for us to invest. And really, we can actually put teeth in that project there to say, you know, here's the accountability piece. You know, and for the record, I wasn't in trouble. I chose a path that I knew that this was the only way for me to really become more productive and successful. But I just want to let you know that you guys are looking at the right areas. So when firefighters come before Board of Rights or discipline that involves drugs or alcohol, that they be given the opportunity to go to a program internally that has some form of accountability. And with that, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Chief.
Yeah, thank you for your honesty and your comments. We appreciate that. And I don't think we have any more comments, so we can move. Do I have a motion?
Move to adopt the recommendations for item 4C.
Do I have a second?
I second.
As amended? As amended?
I second as amended.
Okay, great. So can we have a roll call?
Ibarra?
Aye.
Glazier?
You're muted.
Aye.
Hara?
Aye.
Ninberg?
Aye.
Woods Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries as amended.
Thank you. And that is all that we have today. I don't see any public comments. So thank you all. We will see you again in 2 weeks. Have a good week. Bye.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, yes.
All right, move to adjourn.